efficiency. We'll be talking about the draft laws which are ready, which are to be adopted in this or next parliament so that we are more energy efficient. And I believe the colleagues will talk about how important it is to preserve what we, or to save what we consume. So here's the presentation. I would like... I'm happy to have Mr. Sergiy Savchuk, Chairman of the State Agency for Energy Efficiency and Energy Saving of Ukraine, Leonid Resuhin, the head of the foundation, Sergiy Kushnir, Ukraine's Ministry of Regional Development, thank you. Oleg Kozachuk, President of the Association for Energy Efficiency and Energy Saving. My colleague, thanks to which we usually we have this round table, Tetyana Boyko, OPORA Civil Network. And to start, I would like to invite Oleg Kozachuk to say a few words. Good afternoon to all participants of the round table. Today we'll be discussing very important issue. I will try to very quickly discuss what we have and where we need to move. The next slide. We have the following situation in Ukraine. The next slide. The situation in Ukraine is very complicated, and the main message is we consume more, 2-3 times more than in Europe or in the world. So we consume approximately 260 kilowatt hours per 1 square meter. In Europe, it's from 90 to 120. So the difference is 1-2 times more than everywhere in the world. We always give an example of Poland, which has 3 times bigger GDP, but they consume only 15 billion cubic meters of gas. And Ukraine consumes 50.4 billion cubic meters of gas. We see the dynamic with our assets, and depreciation is more than 70%. Who are our major consumers? More than 40% is consumed by industry, more than 30% the household, about 12% transportation, and 10% other consumers. Talking about the National Action Plan on Energy Efficiency till 2020, we calculated how much can we reduce the consumption. It has 9% consumption, reduction in consumption, 9% to save by 2020, 9%. We need to invest 1 trillion hryvnias, and this will lead to saving these 9%. Talking about sectors, here you have in tons of oil equivalent and in percentage. It shows which sector can save how much, 50 billion. The Ukraine has to consume 2 or maybe 3 times less than it's doing now. Not 50%, maybe 25 or maybe even less. And that means that we will pay less for energy, and the budget will also pay less. Another example with the National Action Plan. If we invest about 800 billion hryvnias, then we will save 2.4 trillion hryvnias. It's 1 to 3. Every hryvnia invested in energy saving, we will have 2 hryvnias saved by 2020. In other sectors, such correlation even more. It's 1 to 6. Why is it happening this way? One of the reasons is that we account that the accounting of energy is not mandatory. There are just 2 countries like that, Ukraine and Turkmenistan. In Turkmenistan, 1,000 cubic meters costs $4. In Ukraine, $500. So we have 35% of points of accounting. Everything else we calculate according to the norms, which are obsolete, and they lead to very high energy consumption. And it is very important. What types of energy do we consume? We consume not just gas, which is 38%. We consume electricity, thermal energy, oil, and we are saying that if we save, we need to save everywhere, in the industry, in transportation, in household sector, and we warn against the Polish experience, because they changed their generation, they changed their and technical capacities, they improved them, and that is why we say that now one of the most important moments, and the State Energy Efficiency Committee is supporting that. We need to move in 2 directions. The first one, we need to reduce energy consumption, and second is gas replacement of gas. We are moving actively in the process of replacing gas, substituting gas. But talking about reduction in energy consumption, we are at the initial stage, and we just start working in this direction. Here I would like to finish, but the main 3 ideas we would like to discuss. First, in order to start reduce consumption, to motivate everyone, for that we need to introduce institutional changes, energy efficiency in buildings, introducing the mechanisms which will allow to use the saved money to modernize the industry. Second, there is a request to authorities. All the draft laws should be widely discussed with the public, and they are to be approved by consensus. There's no mechanism of stimulating energy efficiency. It's being developed now, so we need to get involved into that, to develop transparent and efficient mechanism of stimulating energy efficiency. In our structure of the cost of GDP of Ukraine, energy costs account for more than 70%, and only 10% are costs for salaries. In Europe and in the US, the cost of energy resources 35%, and the cost for salaries is also 35%. So we basically need to reduce costs for energy resources, and we need to increase our salaries. We have very big energy costs, and that's why our salaries are so low. And also we'll be discussing that we need to do more in the household sector, but we shouldn't forget about the main consumer, industry because of the war, because of the difficult economic and market situation. We need to develop the state policy for the industry so that it is interested in use of energy resources efficiently. In the West, the companies are working on energy efficiency not because they are so modern, but because it's economically profitable for them. And when they implement the projects on energy saving and energy efficiency, that economic model allows them to earn money on that. I would like to thank the organizers of the roundtable and to thank the representatives of the Committee on Energy Efficiency and the Ministry. Thank you for making this presentation so short, and I would like to give the floor to Sergiy Savchuk. I forgot to introduce another person, Svyatoslav Pavlyuk, EU program representative. Sergiy, the floor is yours. Thank you. Thank you for good words. We do have, we are doing something which is to replace gas. I cannot say that this is one of our main measures. That's one of the set which the agency is to be working on. But in this heating season, we lack 5 billion cubic meters of gas. We need to either get this gas from somewhere or replace it by something. So the efforts of the agency will be concentrated on gas substitution. We had a roundtable in the Ukrainian Union of Entrepreneurs and Industrialists, and the directors of some plants say that the gas is disconnected from their companies and the electricity is disconnected. That's a serious signal to us. The gas is to be substituted by something. What we do and what we'll be doing, developing other sources of alternative energy and developing the energy saving. What is the context of this problem today? In 2012, Ukraine consumed 15 billion cubic meters of gas. That is extremely a big number, and we have to save. The industry consumed 20 billion. In the industry, there should be measures implemented to reduce the consumption, and not they need to use to consume less gas. We concentrate our attention on the household and on such things as kindergarten, schools, hostels. Also, the population consumed almost 17 billion cubic meters, and the budgetary sphere about 1 billion. And here and that's where we concentrate our efforts. We reduced this year the limits of gas for the sphere of the budget and the population. That forces the mayors and the governors to think how to reduce the consumption of gas and how to substitute gas. We have provided an investment attractive tariff for all the energy producers who will be substituting gas. 80% of the energy is consumed by the population, and those companies which were generating heat from imported gas, they were getting the difference to local from local budgets. The companies were getting this difference. The companies and investors that had the possibility to use a new boiler which would use electricity or pellets, they were not entering this market, and these were 85% because the difference was not compensated to them. Now we made the unified tariff, and we know the companies which are selling heat generated using other types of energy, and they get this difference in tariff from the state budget, and this will be 118 million hryvnias. We show to the investor that next year everyone who wants to work in this market can plan the costs for putting such boilers in their business plans. Besides,
Moreover, we have approved the implementation plan for 29th directive. These are European approaches for the alternative fuels development, and besides that, we had a possibility to get 28 million hryvnia via regional programs for substitution of gas fuels. This money has already reached the regions, and as far as I know, they are doing now specific measures to substitute gas and gas fuels. Moreover, we have cut down the norms for gas consumption for subsidized population from 9.5 to 7 cubic meters. At that time, there were no meters, gas meters, and that's why there were huge consumption figures. Today, people use electric teapots, electric utensils for cooking. Many people have put meters, gas meters in their house. That's why it is.
У нас на сьогоднішній день встановлено.
It is possible to cut down the norms, and also for those houses and flats where people do not have meters, this will cut down possibilities for abuses and fraud. And actually, this allowed to supply shadow gas market with up to 1.3 billion cubic meters of this gas, which was not counted properly. Also, we have received support from the EU for energy-saving measures, but unfortunately, they were not used properly. This year, we have directed 50 million hryvnia from the EU funds for assistance to those people who would like to change their gas heaters or boilers using gas with heaters and boilers which use other fuels available. There's applications for the project are available at the CMU website and local authorities websites, and this year, people will be able to purchase and install electric heaters and boilers or hard fuel heaters and boilers, and thus people will use more efficient heaters and boilers, and this also will allow to save fuel. Also, we are are now developing more ambitious program for 249 million hryvnia, and we will support investors who substitute their gas boiling plants with hard fuel and electric boiling plants. As of the moment, we reviewed the documentation and found that some budgets were exaggerated, and currently we suggest that investors may invest via a new scheme. We will repay to investor 30% or 20% of his her investment, and then we apply coefficient which substitutes gas 3 or 5 times. Also, having an experience with the difficulties when checking the documentation provided by investors, we decided to provide a possibility that any investor coming to Ukraine this year and manages to substitute 300 cubic meters of gas, and at the end of heating season provides us with a document that this investor has substituted 300,000 cubic meters of gas, and the local energy company supports that this figure is true, and we will repay this investor some percentage of the his investment for this gas saving results. And thus, those who bring 2 million hryvnia heating plant, which uses not gas but hard fuels, will be more interested in installing this heating plant more cheaply than those who will be able to install it on the cost of 5 million hryvnia, for example, because we will compensate or repay 30% of gas saved, not the plant saved. Also, we have a plan which is part of our commitments to the EU, and we plan to get up to 13% of our energy generation from alternative sources up to 2020, while currently we have only 3% of this energy generation from alternative sources, from wind, from solar energy, from geoenergy, but this will require 300 billion investments from us. A week ago, I represented our action plan in Brussels. It was presented in a form of concept which had to be passed by the government, and those investors who attended Energy Security Forum in Brussels, they confirmed that as soon as the government would pass this concept and this alternative sources action plan, then they will be ready to participate in its implementation. What else? To implement our commitments with the EU, we are now thinking about energy efficiency issues. We have some problems with the action plan on energy saving issues. It caused many comments, sometimes negative comments from the EU experts, and that's why I requested from the EU experts to give us more time and to bring it in compliance with the EU requirements and with the European standards. What we expect to achieve. Today we saw the example of Poland, which is very impressive and suggests that it is possible to reach. All those measures will allow us to compensate within 3 years or to decrease consumption within 3 years in a housing sphere from 25 billion cubic meters, which we consume today, decrease this by 21 billion. And this will allow Ukraine to ensure heating and hot water supply on the account of its own gas production. And we plan to decrease this from 25 billion cubic meters, decrease it by 50%. Also, we count for investments, and we are ready to pass necessary legislation for investors to feel themselves comfortable working in Ukraine. Thank you for reviewing that challenge.